Hello and welcome to Jump To It, brought to you by irishracing.com and Betting Expert. I'm Shane Anderson, and today we are previewing Day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival, highlighted by the biggest race in national hunt racing, and that, of course, is the Cheltenham Gold Cup. It's going to be a fantastic contest this year, and joining us to preview the whole meeting, it's great to have Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley with us once again. Stephen, this is the day that everyone wants to have a runner on. That, of course, is Gold Cup Day. In many ways, we've got the Grand National being the big public race, but for the true people in the sport, I think the Gold Cup is the one they all want to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic day's racing. Certainly the first 4 races. Anyway, after that, it does tail off a little bit after the Lord Mayor's show sort of thing. But we've got Alboom Photo bidding to make history, looking for win number 3 in this race. He's currently 5-2 favourite, which does look quite short. Perhaps the value lies elsewhere. And to start the day, Shane, we've got a brilliant race for the Triumph Hurdle. I think this is probably the best quality Triumph Hurdle there's been for a very long time. Some really big reputations on the line.
All right, can't wait to talk more about that with you shortly as Ed Quigley joins us. Ed, this is, as I said to Stephen, the big day for so many people in national hunt racing. How are you looking at it this year? Not only the Gold Cup, but the rest of the card. Is it a strong one?
It's a tricky one. I think obviously the Gold Cup is the highlight, isn't it? I think the Triumph Hurdle looks exceptional potentially, and then you've got some absolute minefields. The kind of bookies benefit races, haven't you? I think you're around 7-1 the field in the Albert Bartlett. I mean, the Martin Pipe is always absolute carnage. The Hunter Chase, I have absolutely no idea, even after the race, what's happened, let alone before it. So it's the 2 standout races for me, and then some very, very trappy handicaps and contests on the day.
All right, guys, let's get into the card. Day 4 at the Cheltenham Festival. Start the day with the Grade 1 JCB Triumph Hurdle. Now, this is a race restricted to 4-year-olds, or juveniles as they're often called in national hunt racing. And it's a race that we can often see a really good horse emerge from, although we did have an upset result in the win last year of Pentland Hills. But it does on paper, Stephen, look to be perhaps a battle between the likes of Tritonic and also Zanahiyr.
Yeah, definitely. It's Britain against Ireland. It's a really good race this year, actually. In the past, it's been a bit of a bookmaker's benefit. I remember Countrywide Flame winning at 33 a few years ago, and Pentland Hills, as you say, last year was a surprise winner. But this looks high quality. Tritonic of Alan King. I know that the owners backed him at 25-1 before he ran at Ascot to win this race, so it's always been the target. He was ridden with supreme confidence in bad ground at Ascot. Picked up Casa Lupi, having gifted him 10 lengths. At Kempton last time out, again, he was hammered in the market. He was really impressive, and I think the key is good ground. He's got a really smart turn of foot. He was rated 99 on the flat, and he's showed that at Kempton on decent ground. I think he might have too much speed for Zanahiyr, who's a horse... He's won his races impressively in Ireland, and the people who do the times are absolutely raving about Zanahiyr. They can't have Tritonic in the same class. But you'll appreciate this, Shane. I was always told, as you're an Australian, but you should only ever worry about time when you're serving it. And I think that visually, Tritonic has been a lot more impressive than Zanahiyr in the manner in which he quickened up on good ground. So I'm hoping that Tritonic can win for Alan King.
Just a gentle reminder, Stephen, not all Australians are of convict descent, but I do take your point there. Ed, let's focus on perhaps some of these big name runners. I know you were supremely confident, as was Stephen, around Tritonic going into his last start and good win. But whether we talk about Zanahiyr or some of the other runners in this race, they look to be horses that we will be seeing progress to, say, a champion hurdle in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, quite possibly, haven't we? I mean, the Irish appear to have a strong hand, and it was Zanahiyr. Obviously, Quilixos has done a little wrong recent times. So we've just lost French Cecile's we've drawn out the race, had a setback at the 11th hour. And then you've got Adagio, of course, who's arguably a little bit of the forgotten horse in here. He's got some very good graded form to his name for the David Pipe team. But I had my rant on last week's show about Tritonic, so don't set me off again. And I've only had 4 cups of coffee today, not 5. So you'll be all right. But for goodness sake, this was a horse who finished runner-up to a Group 1 horse at Hamilton, finished second on good to firm at Yarmouth. He's a horse with serious gears. He doesn't have to break some stopwatch at Kempton in order to tell you can run quick. You know that from his flat days when finishing runner-up at Royal Ascot. He's a horse I really like. His negative, if you like, would be his jumping went a little bit sticky on a couple of occasions down the back straight at Kempton, but I think he's just learning on the job. Just his second ever start over hurdles, and when Adrian Heskin gave him a little squeeze and told him to come on, let's concentrate, he picked the bridle back up again and just cruised past his rivals and quickened up nicely, Stephen says, and won with any amount in hand. I really like him. I think the ground would be pretty much good ground unless Michael Fisher's done the weather for this week, and the ground's going to be rattling. He will quicken up. He's a bordering on listed class horse on the flat, and I think they might not see which way he went.
Guys, you've both put forward that you want to talk about the County Hurdle. To my eye, it looks like it's the toughest race of the week. I think it's a raffle. Stephen, which way do you think it'll go?
No, I think this is my strongest bet of the week, to be honest. I have taken 16 to 1 about third time lucky. He is now still 10 or 12 for looking, perhaps. The ground is the key with him. He's a hard puller. It takes plenty of settling. He hasn't really settled over hurdles yet. In 5 runs, he's won 3 of them. He did get beaten at Cheltenham by 4 Pleasure on really testing ground when that rival stole 30 lengths and they were all asleep in behind him. He actually ran an absolute blinder, and 4 Pleasure's come out and run really well at Newbury in the Betfair Hurdle. Last time at Musselburgh, the ground was loose and atrocious. He pulled hard and didn't get home. You can forget that. It's done him a right favour as far as handicaps are concerned because his mark's a lot lower than it should be. Decent ground for the first time over hurdles. He ran really well in the champion bumper last year behind Fernie Hollow. Appreciate it was second. He was 4th. He ran an absolute screamer, so the track's no problem. He's got good ground for the first time. They've missed the Supreme. They're definitely going for this race. They've announced today. I think he'll be 6 to 1 favourite. And this is a race that Dan Skelton milks. He's won it twice with Mohamed, once with Chitibello. So he's been laid out for the race. Harry Skelton, who we mentioned a few weeks ago, I think he's going to be the champion jockey this year, and hopefully he'll be steering this one home up the hill.
All right, well, if you think he's going to be about a 6 to 1 favourite on the day, I think you're still getting around 10 to 1 with Sky Bet. So there's a bit of value there based on your assessment. Ed, which way are you going?
Got no issue with third time lucky at all. I think he's an absolute major player. There's no way on planet Earth he can start a double figure price. Absolutely. But from looking for something at bigger prices to fill the frame, we've talked about Time Hill, but Time White for Paul Nicholls would be one to keep an eye on. Now, this horse, I believe, actually touched favourite in running in the Betfair Hurdle last time out. Came there cantering. It was his first start for about 3 months, and he just got a little bit tired after the last on very tacky ground. Nicholls has always said, he said in his pre-season stable tour back in August, and he's repeated again now, I think the better the ground, the better his chances. He's around 33 to 1 or 25. So I mean, he's a big old price here for a horse who, I say, if you stop the Soaring Glory Betfair Hurdle win about 200 yards from the line, you'd be shocked to think he could finish 9th. So there's a slight worry about maybe a flatter track will suit, but I think the key to him will be he'll come on for that run fitness-wise. He's been eased a pound to a mark of 140, and crucially, if he can get ground no worse than good to soft by Gold Cup Day, I think it'd be one of those. Reminds me a little bit of the horse they had win this a few years ago called American Trilogy. A real strong traveller. Was always questioning what he would find off the bridle, but he got his ground for the Gold Cup Day when I think it dried up to officially good, and he hit the turbo and went away up the hill. So I think he's well handicapped. He's a strong traveller. He'd be my way alternative, but I would not put anyone off third time lucky by any stretch of imagination. I think even Superb Stories, Never Horse, Steve forgot to mention, who's actually won the race as well. This is like the Dan Skelton show, this race, and he would have major claims. So essentially, they're my 2 Vita, Phil.
Before we move on and talk about some of the other races on the card, I just want to get your overall assessment on some of these big field handicap races. As a rule, they're often run at a very, very strong gallop from the outset. Stephen, when you do the form for this type of race, what are you looking for in your horse?
Usually a hold-up ride or a hold-up jockey. Someone like Paddy Brennan's got a brilliant record at Cheltenham. In the past, Ruby Walsh was just sublime. Paul Carberry. Jockeys who are very good judges of pace and know where the track biases. Very often, we haven't mentioned this yet, but often at Cheltenham, particularly on testing ground, in fact, which we're not going to get this time, but wide can be a lot better. So it's well worth watching the early races on the day to see if there's any bias. Of course, it's possible that if the weather forecast is right and it dries out a lot, they might water, which is another absolute nightmare for punters because I don't think they, generally speaking, water that evenly at Cheltenham, and very often up the inside it can become like super glue. So it's well worth watching the early races to see if there's any track bias.
Ed, do you have a theory when you look at some of these big handicap fields?
Not in terms of the way they're run generally, but maybe subconsciously I am, because what I always do love to go back to is previous course form. It's something I always harp on about at Cheltenham. What was that horse I was trying to think of the other day? There was some... I can't remember. There was some 11-year-old chaser I was looking at, and he just finished third, second, do nothing all season round, but he'd get a bit of better ground, the tempo of the race, the track, the whole dynamic of the contest, so different from a kind of 5-runner race round Plumpton and Heavy. And it often just horses that really do come alive in those conditions. And so, as a general rule, I would never, ever put anyone off, even if the horse arrives with 3 duck eggs next to his name and are pulled up. If he's got C and D2 in his form figures and he's 33-1, I think you could do a lot worse than kind of approach that angle in terms of your punting in handicaps.
Well, just a reminder, the Betting Expert will be running its predictor competition for the Cheltenham Festival yet again. Head to bettingexpert.com, sign up. It's free to enter. And all you need to do is find a winning selection in each of the races on the card. There's an accumulation of points. And if you come out on top, you win a great prize each and every day for the Cheltenham Festival. Head to bettingexpert.com and get involved in the predictor. All right, guys, let's move on to the big race of the week. It is the championship race, the Wellchild Cheltenham Gold Cup at Grade 1 level. Stephen, it's always the true championship in many ways of National Hunt racing. It's the one that everyone wants to win. And we've got a horse in album photo going to try and do what Best Mate did, and that is win the race 3 times.
Yeah, and he holds standout claims, but he's just, the only thing against him is the price. These races tend to be quite fine margins. Nothing's going to be winning it by 20 lengths in command a mile out. And 5-2 in a race of this nature. I've just got at the back of my mind, I know you shouldn't judge a horse of his class on his trial run at Tremor. He was long odds on, but he was short of pace for about 200 or 300 yards. He did look briefly in a bit of trouble, and he's not the quickest horse in the world. The ground will definitely be as quick as he wants it. He's 5-2. Just crossing my mind, he might be short a bit of pace. The other one up the front there, who I'm not that keen on, is Champ. Watching back the race he won at the festival last year, of course, visually it looked like he flew up the hill. To my mind, watching it again this morning, I thought the other two stopped, to be honest. He was going nowhere, turning for home, looked a million, and the other two were rowing up front, and I think they rather cut each other's throats. He looked like he flew home. What that form's worth, well, I'm not sure. He's had 10 months off, or a best part of a year off, before he ran at Newbury the other day. They gunned him from the tape. He jumped a lot better. That was over 2 miles. It wouldn't be my idea of the ideal preparation, to be honest. I think he jumps left. He can take a grip. Despite impressions over 3 miles last year at the festival, I don't think he'll stay 3 mile 2. So that's the front 2 in the market. I've been keen on A+ Tard for a very long time. He's now 6-1. There's still a tiny bit of juice in that price. He's only run 10 times over fences. I've loved his runs in Ireland. I really like the fact, something we've touched on before, freshness at this stage of the season. He's been off since he ran over Christmas. That was a proper race in Ireland. Forget about these solos round Newbury over 2 miles. That was a proper, true run handy, Grade 1. He was parked wide. He was in the heat of the race from a long way out. He put his head down and got the job done. He's been freshened up. I think he'll love decent ground. If you watch his run back at the festival, which Ed touched on about watching festival races, you really should. That's a really good bit of advice for punters. He should have won last year. He was a very, very heavily backed favourite in the Ryanair. Finished third. Everything went wrong. He made a couple of mistakes at the wrong time under probably an overconfident ride. I think he's a different horse now. 3 mile 2 will suit him, and he's my confidence selection.
All right, bit of confidence into the Gold Cup from Stephen. Ed, not only do we have Album Photo going to win the race for the 3rd time, we've got another former winner in Native River also lining up, who's back in good form. Are you going for more of the established horses in the Gold Cup, or are you looking for a bit of fresh blood?
I'm going the fresh blood angle. Native River, love him to bits, but the age of 11 on good ground, I think he'll be racing the camera crew and the ambulance, unfortunately, by the time they come into the home straight. I just don't think he'll be able to keep up the gallop on that ground. In fact, I think Frodon, who's got plenty of form over 2.5 and will probably go forward, I'm not sure he'd be able to lay up Frodon as daft as it sounds. I just think the ground is such a key issue here. If it became like a Welsh national kind of test, then that's a totally different ballgame. Going back to Album Photo, he's the funny horse, isn't he? I mean, crikey, he's on the verge of winning 3 Cheltenham Gold Cups. I mean, it's unbelievable, really. Yet No one seems to like him. He's got a rubbish name. That's definitely got something to do with it. And he's just. And I also think as well that he's almost a little bit of a late blossomer. Like he didn't really do anything until he won the Gold Cup, if that makes sense. He wasn't one of these like novice hurdlers who conquered all before him or stormed up the hill like a Denman or whatever and won the RSA by 15 lengths. He's a bit of a late developer, and I think people are almost like trying to look elsewhere all the time naturally. And the other problem we've got from a betting perspective at 5-2 is to use I've used it before, like the boxing analogy of a fighter gets old overnight. You have such limited evidence of seeing him. You won't know that he's declined until you see him decline, if you see what I'm saying. It's not like he runs 4 or 5 times a season. He gets beaten 3 lengths at Leopardstown and then 2 lengths at Down Royal. And then you start thinking, well, hang on a minute. Is he quite where he was? He turns up at 1-12, wins an egg and spoon race around Tremor, and then runs in a Gold Cup. And that's probably another reason, half the reason why people haven't quite cottoned on to him. So it's a very hard horse to grasp in terms of where you actually are with him, you see what I'm saying. So essentially, I'm a lot of agreement with Stephen Applutard. I think coming here fresh is there's that kind of Sizing John feel about him, isn't there? Where Sizing John got criticised, perhaps he won't stay, but if anything, and the form book would tell you, he improved even more for going up in trip. And so I can see the similarities there. I think Applutard's rock solid, and I'm actually in the De Bromhead camp overall here. I think the sleeper in the market now could be Manila Indo, just on the basis I think he is a proper stayer and he has excellent Cheltenham form. He was just pipped in what was the RSA last year. He won the Grade 1 Albert Bartlett the year before it. He comes live at this track. Jack Kennedy, excellent jockeys, come in for the spare ride on this horse. And yes, his jumping appears to have gone a little bit wayward in recent times, but if he puts in a clear round, stamina is definitely his forte, and which is, as we've seen, the likes of Synchronised and Lord Windermere winning Gold Cups, stamina is never a problem when it comes to this contest. So yeah, I'd be Applutard and Manila Indo Vidafield. Going back to Champ, I just cannot work him out for love nor money. Yes, he won last year. His only run in a year is when finishing runner-up to a horse who's 33-1 to win the Champion Chase over 2 miles, and he's in here touching 4-1 to win a Gold Cup. I cannot work Champ out, to be honest with you. So I'm team De Bromhead, Vidafield, but very much looking forward to it.
Ed, I just want to press you on a point around, not seeing a horse like Album Photo on a regular basis. I think one of the great selling points of National Hunt racing over many, many years is that we get to see these warrior horses come back year after year after year, and the fans can really fall in love with them. But there is a modern trend to not campaign quite heavily through the season. They're just finding significant targets. It's usually Cheltenham being, of course, the biggest target of the year that the horses are geared towards. So gone are the days, I think, where you're seeing a horse run 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times throughout a season. Now it might only be 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, absolutely. I was having this debate with someone else the other day. I think if you go back to 2008 Supreme Novices, I think the joint favourite was Pigeon Island, who'd had 11 starts in novice hurdles that season. I mean, it just never happened now, would it? I mean, you get 2 or 3 starts, they get tuned up. Obviously, Nicky Henderson's come under a little bit of criticism for cotterwalling his horses, but maybe they just feel the best way to go. And at the end of the day, if you've got owners, you put your horse in training with the likes of your Mullins or your Hendersons, essentially you're putting the horse with them in order to win the massive targets and the Cheltenham Festivals and your King George's. Yes, it's very nice winning at Huntingdon on a Wednesday afternoon, but I suppose it kind of dovetails, it goes hand in hand. And so, yeah, I suppose you could argue Henrietta Knight started it to some extent that Best Mate, wasn't seen all that often. And Nicky Henderson, in fairness, I mean, he's had form for it. I've chatted to Peter Scudamore the other day, and he was saying that a joke with "See You Then" in the middle to late part of his career was called "See You When" as the nickname, because they would just bubble wrap him as much as they could to get him to a race. And so yeah, it does seem to be a bit of a trend. I suppose that's a chat for another a rainy or sunny day, isn't it? Whether it's detrimental to the season as a whole and what can be done about it. But it's just the way it is. Willie Mullins has found a formula where you run your horse in an absolute non-contest and run him at the Cheltenham Festival, and it's won him 2 Gold Cups. And if he goes and does it again, who are we to sneer at, what that means in the bigger picture? They'll be laughing all the way home with 3 Gold Cups on their CV. So, yeah, it's an interesting debate, but Applutard is one of those who's probably been campaigned on the lighter side of things, without being scarcely seen this season. I just think he's cherry ripe for this contest. And yeah, if you ask me who you think will win the race, I'd be with Stephen Otten Applutard, but I wouldn't be giving up Manila Indo from an each way perspective, just given the record of his Cheltenham Festival form.
Stephen, when doing form and trying to work out which horse is going to come out on top, it does make it hard, though, when you're not seeing these horses regularly, because it's almost like you're doing form on reputation or stable reputation or sometimes even market moves.
Yeah, I think it's to do with monopolies, isn't it? When you get all the power concentrated in a couple of big stables, they basically can pick their punches, avoid racing against their stablemates, understandably, and it ends up being 2 or 3 runs a season, and that's it. I mean, as Ed said, Henrietta Knight half started this sort of thing with Best Mate, but Best Mate did have physical problems, and it was a miracle to keep getting him to come back for the Gold Cup. He was never going to be the sort of horse who ran every other Saturday in top races, giving away lumps of weight and handicaps. I mean, those of us who are a bit old, Shane, might remember a horse called Desert Orchid. I remember when I was a teenager, obviously a very young man, when he was running in the 80s. He used to run every other Saturday at Ascot, Kempton, Sandown, Wincanton. And the crowds used to flock to see him, and he'd give away stones in weight to horses like Panto Prince, and he would race 6, 7, 8 times a season. And that was fantastic for getting interested in horse racing and following it. I mean, quite frankly, Alboon Photo, since he won the Gold Cup in 2020, he's run once at 9-2 on in a match at Tremor when nothing had a chance in the race from halfway. It's not wonderful for racing, is it? You know, you're not going to build up a narrative and be able to promote a race when you're only seeing them once a year by choice, not because he's been injured or that's what they've mapped out and decided to do. I think it is unsatisfactory. What you can do about it is another matter. The answer is nothing.
All right, Stephen, give us your nap for day 4, Gold Cup day at Cheltenham. Have you got a good thing?
Yeah, I think third time lucky in the county hurdle at 155 is still a double figure price. With luck in running, I think he'll be very, very hard to keep out the 4. And I think he'll nearly win if things fall right for him from off the pace. All
right, good push there for third time lucky. Still at a decent price. What about you, Ed? Who's your nap?
Tritonic in the Triumph Hurdle. As long as ground conditions stay on the quicker side of good to soft, I think he's got all the gears. He's a class flat horse. He looks to have taken to the jumping game like a duck to water, and he'd be the one. If you wanted one at a bigger price, I suppose. I mean, he's 9-4 now. There's no secrets there. I think in the county hurdle, around the 25-33 to 1 shot, time white for Paul Nicholls. I think he'll travel as well as anything into the race and should be involved in the finish.
Brilliant insight from both of you. Looking forward to working with you both as we do our live stream edition of Jump to It on each of the 4 days of the Cheltenham Festival. There's Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley. And as I did say, we will be live streaming each day of Cheltenham, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, beginning March 16 from 10 a.m. GMT, so 10 a.m. in the UK. And of course, you'll be able to access via the Betting Expert YouTube channel. Make sure you head to irishracing.com for all the latest news, cards, tips and odds attached to Irish and UK racing, and also head to bettingexpert.com for Stephen Harris's daily tips. As I've said numerous times, he's been in fantastic form over the past couple of months, and of course you can find his nap, his best bet, and also his value bet for days racing in the UK. Hope you've enjoyed this edition of Jump to It, focusing on day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival, Gold Cup Day. We'll see you again very soon.